welcome to the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and my special guest today is a guy named Dave Conrey, who is an artist, and this is our second hour of the show, so I'm pretty excited to have Dave on with us today. Sebastian, you mind playing a little bit of live music for us? All right, so this is Sebastian Messer, everybody. Awesome. Thank you, Sebastian. That's really awesome. So, Dave, welcome back. Thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the last hour, we were talking a lot about like the creative side of things, and just kind of pushing through some of those self-imposed restrictions, and also like societal restrictions. I'm not going to even deny that. There's like a lot of stuff out there. It's like, oh, well, how do you do this, or how do you do that? Like, you're an overnight success. It's like, oh yeah, you didn't see the last 10 or 15 years of the work, but overnight success. But I wanted to ask you, you do these TikTok videos, and then you have your YouTube channel. So can you talk more about that? Because I feel like that's a great way to actually connect with your audience. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on, what are some good elements of like doing that?
Both of those platforms they're pretty unique animals unto themselves, but what I have come to find out through, again, more just experimentation and exploration in regards to those is that just going in without any kind of, like, I'm not trying to achieve a particular goal, right? I'm not trying to get to 1 million followers. I mean, I would love to have 1 million followers on any platform, right? I would love that, but I'm not trying to achieve any particular goal like that. I'm just, when I first dove into YouTube or first, got into TikTok, I was just trying to explore different things and express myself in different ways. If you go back through, I've been doing YouTube for quite a while, and for many, many years, very little success, because I was just trying to find my rhythm there, and kind of diving into what other people were in, like what other creators on YouTube were doing, but trying to do it in a way that's representational of my stuff, right? So, if anybody's ever heard of Casey Neistat, who's one of the most popular people on YouTube, he calls himself a filmmaker, but he's really raw with his filmmaking, but also creative. And he would just do, like, he found his true popularity. He really found his rhythm when he was doing these daily vlogs, these video blogs of himself and his, the stuff that he would do on a regular basis. Now, I didn't have the time and energy to do daily, but, I started doing that, and it was experimentational for me, but it also helped me discover my voice in that space, or really trying to help me understand how I could express myself in that space. And so I took that lesson, and then as I started to find out what the people wanted me to be creating on YouTube, or rather what they were coming to YouTube for or searching for on YouTube and then finding me, I figured I can tap into this idea of these things that people want, but then express myself in a way that's indicative of me just talking about that thing that they want to talk about. And as soon as I found that rhythm, that's when I started to climb. That's when I started to, I'm still a small YouTuber. I've got a little over 3,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. Nothing compared to some of these guys that have millions and millions. But I have the majority of those subscribers have all come within the last, basically the last 10 months, because I tapped into something that resonated with the right crew, and it was something that I could talk about with a reasonable amount of authority, and then just express it the way I did.
That's how you and I met. I mean, I saw your TikToks in my For You feed, For You page or whatever, and I was like, dude, I like this guy, and I enjoyed your message, and I was like, sent you a message or whatever, and I mean, it resonated with me. So
yeah,
I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I think it's a good thing that I did do all those YouTube videos, because I took that knowledge and understanding of who I was and applied that to TikTok, because you go from a format that's, like where my videos are normally anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes on YouTube. Now I have to move that into 10 to 15 seconds, right? So, there's a lot of people that put out content on TikTok, and there's a lot of, God love them, but there's a lot of uninteresting information or stuff to put out there. So I'm not going to be right.
There's
stuff
like the weird. There's like all kinds of different tracks on TikTok. Like it's like you found the clown car loving, whatever. I'm like, huh? How did that end up on my FYP? Like I'm into art and stuff.
I know. Like it's crazy. The funny thing is like it's like just trying to find that, and how somebody would find me through that, right? Like how they would get directed to me, from TikTok. It's just like, okay, well that's good. At least some people are finding me, like here and there, but not, it's not everybody. But like just being able to express myself in a particular way and then share a particular message that I think, and again, it's not necessarily about finding just artists or creative people. For me, it's about finding the person often who probably suppressed their creativity at some point, suppressed their artistic interests at some point, and then I said the right thing at the right time so that they would go back and pick up their pencil and their pen or their paint and their canvas and do something with that.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that's where I really kind of hit gold on TikTok for a while there. So
that's a great mission to have, Dave.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But then TikTok changes the algorithm.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I got rid of TikTok a couple months back, and then of course Instagram does their Reels now, which is like a very watered down version of TikTok. But I've always liked Instagram, even before Facebook owned them, and but I've been kind of doing the Reels thing, and then I have, oh my gosh, like everybody's posting their TikToks on the Reels, and but you can only do like 15-second or 30-second Reels versus TikTok. I think you can do it to a minute or something like that still.
Yeah.
And so I got hooked back in, and I opened up my TikTok again. But I find, like, for me, the reason why I like TikTok so much with the videos was because, like, I like art, I like funny stuff, comedy, and I like dance. My daughter's both did ballet, and I like that. And then as a kid, you remember that? I can't remember the show's name, but do you remember that show that it was like where they would go out and they do lip syncing and all this dancing and stuff? It was really popular back in the day. Oh gosh, I can't remember what it was called. It was a TV show where they would lip sync and make up their own dance routines and stuff like that to popular songs. And like TikTok, TikTok has so much lip syncing on there, where the people are doing these dances and all that stuff or whatever. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. But I also like creative people who, like you, who are talking about their thing and, kind of sharing like best practices and stuff like that. So that's one of the appealing things for me. And YouTube, this is going to sound really crazy, Dave, but I've had a YouTube since like 2008, and I didn't really use it a whole lot. I started to do some stuff here and there, but I never really got into it. And I don't know, about a month and a half, maybe a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago now, Libsyn, which is my podcast host that I use, they added where you could add YouTube and Amazon Music and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, why not? You know, I've been getting more plays on YouTube than I have through my podcast. And yeah, it's crazy. Like I had, I don't know, it was, I think, almost 3,000 minutes watched. And all I'm doing is just porting over the podcast to YouTube. I mean, like, I'm not like posting anything else really. I'm not doing, you know, any kind of instructional videos or anything like that. And that was just organically sent over. Boom. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Cause usually on the podcast, I get anywhere from, like, I've had a couple weeks where I had like 150 or 200 downloads, but typically I get like 30 to 40 downloads a week on the podcast. And, this last week, I had 400 downloads on YouTube, for one of my guests that I had on. And so, yeah, it's cool because it's like, you know, I don't really care where I reach people. I want to reach them where they want to watch or listen to the content, you know?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I was surprised with YouTube how much it just picked up. So that's something I've been kind of focusing on more and trying to get into doing that. And, you know,
that's cool.
Yeah, I haven't done, it's kind of weird, but I haven't done any, like little how-to stuff. I did write a book a couple years back on, it was called Writing a Better Press Release. And it was because I kept seeing all these bad press releases for like events and things like that. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just write a, you know, short book or whatever. And I thought about doing that, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of like I like your videos because you just share what you're doing and then you give some, you know, encouragement, but I don't like the folks that do like prescriptive type stuff. I kind of like, I'm like, oh, well, you know, I don't really like I call them the shovels and jeans folks or the thought leaders. Yeah, because we, you know, oh my gosh, when the TED Talks came out, I was like, oh, this is so great. This is so great. And then there was this whole culture of this thought leader, you know, like, oh, if you do this and you do that, you'll be able to do X, Y, Z, and here, buy my this or buy my that, and you know, I could sell you this program for $5,000 and it'll help you achieve your goals. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, those are the shovels and jeans people. Like, I call it shovels and jeans because during the gold rush days,
yeah,
the miners weren't making the money. It was the folks selling the shovels and jeans to the miners who made the fortunes, you know?
Right. Absolutely. There was the purveyors of the equipment. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And, you know, the approach that I've taken to YouTube, you know, for the most part is, it actually, I call it the Clooney method, because it's like this concept that George Clooney had put out a while ago, that he'll do one video for Hollywood, and then he'll do one movie for Hollywood, and then he'll do a movie for himself.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, he'll do Ocean's 11, and then he'll do The American, or he'll do Ocean's 12, and then he'll do the Edward R. Murrow story. I forget what it was called, but so he'll do what he wants, and then he'll go back and he'll do what Hollywood wants. So they allow him to do what he wants, and I kind of take on that same methodology to some degree. It's like I create something that I know the people are searching for,
mm-hmm.
because I want to get them in the door, right?
Yeah,
I want to get them over to me, right? And then hopefully win them over with how I approach the video, because, you know, I've watched dozens and dozens of videos of people, you know, talking about graphic design and art, and most of the time these people just like, oh my gosh, you're just killing me. Like, mm-hmm. I just want to get through this video so fast. It's like I don't want to be that guy ever, right? I don't want everybody thinking like mm-hmm. my video is drudgery.
Yeah.
So I get them in the door. I get them to appreciate my content, like at least how I approach my content. And then, you know, the next time they come back, it might be a video of me talking about, I don't know, ideologies, my philosophy, or something that isn't what they originally came over to me to get, right? They just happen to stick around because they like how I am, right? So.
Yeah, and that I think is another reason why people should be sincere, because if you're not sincere, first of all, people are going to know it right off the bat. They're going to be able to tell. They might not be able to tell right off the bat if you're really good, but yeah, you should just be yourself. And then that's such a cliche statement, be yourself, but it's so true. It's like, you can't be somebody else. You can give them, like I had this professor, Dave. Oh my gosh, it's sorry, time to do the thing. Everybody listen to the Adam Messer Show here today on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. I had an English professor going through my undergrad. His name was Dr. David Taylor, and guys, he's brilliant. He's just one of those people that very humble, very down to earth, and he's just clever and brilliant. And he said, when you're writing, and this goes back to storytelling, like with you doing the videos or the art or whatever, it's all storytelling. You're telling some kind of story with it. You have to think about your audience. The audience might be you, it might be one person, it might be a group of people, but you have to think about your audience first. And he said this. He said, "Give them what they want. Give it to them real good." And I was like, oh my gosh, here's this guy who's got his PhD in English, and he's using this to, say, hey, it doesn't matter if you break the rules or if you talk and, whatever. Give the audience what they want, because they want what they want. They're not going to want what you're trying to whatever, spoon feed them. If they don't like it, they're not going to like it, And that's something that kills me. Like there was a person recently that had said something about they didn't like how somebody was changing from present tense to past tense in the writing. And I was like, okay, well, if that is getting the message across and the readers are really loving it, then who am I to judge on that,
Yeah. Yeah, style is an interesting thing, right? It's, we all have our own styles, we have our own tastes, and we expect sometimes things to go a certain particular way, right? But if we all just adhered to what we automatically expect, then we're never going to get pieces of art that, we would never have the, Picasso would have never created, all the stuff that he did later on in life, the cubism and the kind of surrealism that he created later on in life, if he always thought that he would just do what everybody expected him to do. Or what's the quote about from Henry Ford is like,
you can have any color you want as long as it's black.
Well, what I was thinking is how he said, if I gave people what they wanted, I would have made a faster horse.
Yeah,
right?
Faster horse. That's a good one too.
Right? That's what, because they didn't know they wanted a car.
Yeah.
They didn't know they wanted a car at all, right? They just that's the expectation. Sometimes you have to break down the barrier a little bit, But if you get them in the door, right? You get them in the door, and they stick around and appreciate what you're sharing because you got them in the door. Then you can show them the hot new thing.
Yeah.
And so.
It's like, hey, here's a faster horse, but did you know I made this one thing?
Right. There's a new thing called an automobile.
It's like, it's faster than the fastest horse you've ever seen. Oh my gosh, yeah, that cracks me up. I love that too, Dave. I've kind of had to come to find out for myself too that I know that my stuff is not for everybody. Can you hear me?
I think I lost you.
Hold on one second there. Hold on one second here, everybody. Hey, Dave, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? All right, we're going to try to reconnect here with Dave. Give me a second here, everybody. That's part of radio. Audio. Hello?
Yeah, I'm there.
Hey, can you hear me?
There.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I've got the cell. It's on the cell phone here, so probably just disconnected us. Sorry about that. So just to let you know, we are on live radio here on WRU 107.5, Dave. I got to let you know that because we're doing a call in. But yeah, dude, that's one of the things I've kind of had to come to find out is that my stuff's not going to be for everybody, and not everybody's going to appreciate it, and not everybody's going to support it. So I've just kind of come to terms with that. How do you deal with that? Because I mean, you have it's not. I mean, like it's not like way off base or anything like that. You have like pretty neat little style of your own. How do you deal with your stuff maybe not being for everybody?
That's a tough one sometimes because there are times where I wish I could sell more.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where I wish I could get more people to buy stuff that I put out, but it's at a certain point I just have to be honest with myself that I'm not going to be happy making the thing that everybody just wants me to make. I mean, going back to the hats for a second, right? I enjoyed making the hats for a short while there, but at a certain point they became work. They became something I wasn't inspired to make. And I think that the reason people liked the hats is because it was a way for them to get a piece of art that felt functional, that felt like tangible,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to something that they just hang on a wall. It's something they can wear. It's something that they can share with the world by getting it outside. That's one of the reasons why I have this mug that is really popular. It basically says "Do the work."
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a "Do the work" in lettering. One of my little characteristic skulls in there, and that's my most popular item on my website, hands down, because people just like the tangible aspect of having this phrase that has become a catchphrase for me, for sure. And, having that reminder and being able to use it on a regular basis, as opposed to just, if I were just to make an art print that said "Do the work," right? And they put that up in their office or whatever, it's just not as, like some people might buy it, but some people, I think that there's a large group of people that just would prefer to have something that's tangible and real.
Mm-hmm.
And the struggle there is that I'm not always going to want to do that. I'm not always going to want to make hats. I'm not always going to want to make stuff that goes on a mug.
Yeah.
And I just have to be honest with myself about that. That if I make something that is meant for, a canvas or a print, and people don't buy it, well, then that's just what it's going to have to be, right? And if they don't buy it, well, I'm still going to make, I'm still going to create, I'm still going to do my thing, because I can't not do that, because ultimately I need to make myself happy first before I can please anybody else, right?
Yeah.
It's like the when you get on the airplanes and they say in case of decompression, put the mask on yourself first and then on your children or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't save them if you're already passed out, right? So,
right. That's a good way to look at it.
First,
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I think that's a common issue that a lot of folks have, because that's one of the things, like what I was talking about, the good part of the social media where you can meet people, make friends, connect with them and all that. The other thing too is, I try not to compare myself to other people, but you can't help but to see what other people are doing, and then you say, well, this is what I'd like to do, or, whatever. And, so you try to balance that, and you have to go back to, what you want to do versus, like, I like how you said you like the George Clooney method, like give, Hollywood one and you make one, because you can't just be out there in a bubble. If you want to sell stuff, you have to give people what they want. They're gonna let you know what they want, and they're gonna let you know how they do, the things or whatever. But you can't just be like, well, I just made this Picasso style art. And when Picasso first came out with it, and people were like, oh, what is this? Or Van Gogh or whatever. You can't just do that and expect people to just fall in line with everything. You know what I mean? if you're wanting to sell commercial art, or if you're wanting to sell books or anything like that, you have to do something to connect with the audience,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to have stuff out there that you want to do that's different. And I think that's a great way. Like, I like how you do, like you're giving them what they want, and then you're saying, hey, I'm glad that you like this one thing. Let me show you this other thing that I do.
Right. Exactly. And that's one of, I approach YouTube with that as well, because it's like, I want to give them these things. Right. But then it's like a lot of them, they think I'm just a graphic artist.
Oh, okay.
Right? I'm just a designer, right? Because majority of my programming lately has all been around design-oriented programs, or I'm talking about creating, merchandise through print-on-demand companies and selling it on my own website. And so that's more all design-oriented, even though a lot of it's artistic. I got some of the stuff I produce for my website is obviously art, but like a lot of people think I'm a designer, right? But then I will shift them over. It's like, hey, by the way, I do all this other stuff, right? Will they buy? I don't know, but I'm just, I'm at whatever it is, almost 3,200, 3,300 subscribers. Now it's like I'm introducing these people
Mm-hmm.
to this idea of who I am, so that when I hit 30,000 subscribers, or if I do ever get to 300,000 subscribers, and it's like, then it becomes like everybody already knows that, yes, I do this thing over here to help people do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also this side of me, and it's just accepted as the norm, right? It's just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the difference between when everybody, like when Michael Jordan was coming up, everybody knew he was going to be, like in college or whatever, he was a basketball star. He was going to be the phenom that he became, right? And people knew that kind of maybe there was that story that he wanted to play baseball, right? He played baseball in high school and all that. He wanted to play baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so he leaves the Bulls and he goes and plays baseball for a while. And that obviously failed, right? And people just had a really tough time adjusting to that idea, because they had him in this box of being the greatest basketball player of all time, right, at the time, right? As opposed to, like, if you think about guys like, I don't know if you remember him, but Bo Jackson.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Right. Or Deion Sanders. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, these guys who came into the game playing all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's just like this idea, like that you knew that they could do all the things. And if Bo Jackson hadn't hurt himself, where would he be today?
Right. Right.
He would probably been the greatest ball player of all time, had he not had that injury or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but we just accepted it because we knew coming up that he was going to do everything.
I've had that kind of similar experience too, because I started this thing called the Savannah Quill, and it was a way to connect writers and readers for remote literacy. And I've hosted like a bunch of conventions and meet the authors and meet and greet type stuff. And but the one thing was, people would always ask, well, what is that? They seemed like they had a hard time wrapping their brain around, what the Savannah Quill was, and I would explain it or whatever. And so last year, I did a change. I still have the Savannah Quill, but I did a change for the convention, or the little author thing. I called it the Savannah Authors Expo. Straightforward, easygoing name. People had no problems understanding what it was. The same thing with the radio show. The radio show was called Muses, Memoirs, and More when I first started. And I changed it about, about a year and a half. I've been doing this for like 2.5 years. About a year and a half ago, I changed it because people were confused by, that name. And, so I just changed it to the Adam Messer Show. So it's just like, boom, here's a radio show where I talk with authors and artists and entertainers about their projects, about doing the work, and about, the nuts and bolts of the process or whatever. And I found that people have kind of come to accept that. One of the things I get feedback from people a lot is, oh, you do a lot of different things, or you're always doing different projects or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but it all kind of goes back to storytelling. It's like, it's not like I'm doing this project with the books, or I'm talking with authors, and then, like I'm doing carnival work. You know what I mean? It's, it's
That's a visual right there.
yeah. It's not like it's so disjointed. It's like, yeah, hey, I'm talking to Dave Conrey today, and the podcast is going to be up, and then tomorrow I'm going to be talking to you about the books that I'm putting out or whatever. I mean, it's all kind of like in the same vein of like, well, these are creative people, and I just always thought that was kind of funny, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about, we've kind of been desocialized to think about our, doing art or whatever. And for folks that don't do art, or that are not, into creating art or writing or whatever, it is a little bit harder for them to think about, like, well, how do you do all those things? I can't do all those things. I'm like, well, when you're out at the gym, or you're doing this, or you're doing whatever, I'm working on my thing just like you're working on your thing. But my thing just happens to be, something creative. Like I'm making, I'm writing a story, or I'm making a show, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. Those are things that I'm doing, while you're doing your stuff. It's the same kind of thing. You're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing, but my thing just is different than your thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, we've got to do the station break real quick. Dave, we'll be back in about 2 minutes, everybody. You're listening today to WRU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
Listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is Sounds of Tarab from the album Zan.
Do you own a small business? Do you want to get your message out to a dedicated, loyal, and active audience? Then make WRUU part of your company's marketing strategy. Our listeners aren't just passively listening to us in the background. When your company underwrites with WRUU, you're getting their attention. And you're also supporting Savannah's only community radio station. It's an act of both self-interest and community spirit. Connect your brand with WRUU's passion, spunk, and hyper-local focus by choosing an underwriting package that fits your company's budget. Email underwriting@wruu.org for more information. Thank you.
From our cobblestone streets to our stately homes, discover Savannah's maritime history and what makes Savannah, Savannah. One of the hidden secrets of Savannah is the Gardens of the Ships of the Sea Museum. Picnic here and enjoy our complimentary Wi-Fi. More information can be found at shipsofthesea.org. From our
All right, everybody, and we are here today with Dave Conrey. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And Dave, I can really appreciate your philosophy that you've been sharing with us today about creating art, and not only just creating art, but also doing the marketing and putting it out there for people to be able to buy. And I'm gonna ask you this, because I've always felt uncomfortable trying to sell my art, because I don't like, first of all, I don't like pushy salespeople. I don't. That's like the biggest turnoff for me. Like somebody asks me like, hey, do you want to buy this thing? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't care what it is. I don't want to buy it. But you have a really good approach with the way that you offer that. So can you talk about that? Because I feel like that's a common problem that creative people have. I don't care if they're writers or if they're, painters, musicians or whatever. How do you, because I feel like you have a really good approach at doing that. So how do you do that?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's actually a really huge question, because it.
Oh, we got 30 minutes, so.
Right. I wish I could bottle it, right, and sell it, because I would, right, if I could,
yeah.
to be able to give people the confidence in that thing. And I think it just comes down to, at a certain point, going back to what we were talking about making the thing that you want to make, because because you just can't see yourself only doing what the world wants to do, right? It's like, I have to make this certain kind of art because it's what feels like the right idea. And anything that isn't that is, doesn't feel right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it was like, once I got okay with what I was creating, once I got perfectly comfortable with what I was creating, and also comfortable with the idea that I want people to buy my work. But if they don't buy my work, well, then that's okay too, because I'm still going to keep making. Like if I tomorrow said, I'm done trying to sell my art, I'm not going to promote it, I'm not going to share it anywhere, I would still make it, right? I would still make it. Unless you take my eyes and take my hands, I'm never going to stop making stuff right up until the day I die. At least that's what I anticipate. And so being comfortable in that, being comfortable in what I'm creating, and being comfortable with the idea that it's okay if people don't get it. It's okay if people don't buy it. Once I got okay with that, then it was so easy for me to just say, hey, look, it's available. Come get it if you want it. Because I didn't care whether they did or not. Right? I mean, I care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not going to change who I am if you don't. I'm still going to keep doing this. So I put it out and I share it. And I just, I put a price on it that I feel is fair. And if people can't jive with that price, well then, maybe I didn't do my job as a good salesperson by creating, my wife's a salesperson at heart, right? She works for a large hospitality company. She's a bigwig executive within the company, and she came up in sales. And one of the things that she expressed to me many, many years ago was that don't talk about features, right? Talk about benefits when it comes to sales. Don't talk about the shape and the look and how it feels and what it's going to talk about, how it's going to make people feel, right? So if I don't sell something, then it's because I didn't express those benefits to people, perhaps, right? Or I didn't provide the benefit, didn't provide the value for them to be interested enough to buy. And that's I'm okay with that, because I'm not a great salesperson. I'm just perfectly okay with opening my mouth about it.
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love that, and I like your videos too, the way that you do them, because I feel like you have a good pattern with your transitions that you do, especially with the TikToks, because it's so time crunched, but like those transitions and the fact that you do that, and I think that's a really important thing that you're talking about, because like I've never done like hardcore sales, but I've always had different like jobs where I had to use sales skills. Like I used to work making eyeglasses, and I'd have to sell eyeglasses to people, and we never talked about like the frames, and we didn't talk about the lenses. We always talked about, I would always ask them like, well, what are you doing? Like, what are your activities? Are you out boating? Are you are you playing golf, or do you paint? Anything like that. I would talk to them about that. And then when I worked at the school and I worked at the university, and we talked to new students, or we talked to students that were there, we always talked to them about we talk about the benefits. We always talked to them about the reasons why they were going to school. Are you trying to have a better life for your family? Those kind of things. And one of the questions I used to ask students when they first started, I'd say, hey, what is something that you want me to tell you when you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore? What's something that you want me to tell future you? Hey, this is the reason why you're doing it. And that always seemed like it worked pretty well, but I've never liked pushy salespeople. I just never have, because they don't. And it goes back to kind of what your wife is saying. Always talk about the benefits, because the folks that care about you, and they care about why you're wanting to do the thing that you're doing, or buy the thing that you're wanting to buy, they're going to make more money, I feel like, than the person who's just like, hey, buy my thing, because that person is just like, buy my thing. They don't care about you. They just want to get a sale and move on.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's why she has become so successful in the company, is that she's really empathetic, to her customers, and she has a job to do, right? She has a goal. She's not going to bend over just because somebody wants something at a certain price, she's not going to bend over. She has a job to do.
Yeah.
But she's going to do her best to feel empathy for the person that she's selling with, and then also be okay with saying, hey, look, maybe we're not the right place for you, but let's if we can help you at all, we can, right? And I think it's really just, I think that, going back to the benefits of selling, I make art, right? There's no intrinsic benefit other than it looks pretty on the wall, right? Or it might give somebody joy as they walk in the room, but it's not like a more tangible benefit. Like, it'll help you keep your room clean, or anything like that.
Right. It'll keep all your shoes organized. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it'll make your life so much simpler because of time saving, techniques or whatever.
Yeah.
There is no intrinsic benefit like that, right? No tangible benefit like that. It's really like this feeling, right?
It's like, hey, it's a faster horse, everybody.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so it's like trying to get people on board with that idea of like, it'll make you feel better when you walk into the room. It's like that's a tough sell sometimes, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's not so much the selling that a lot of artists have issue with. It's the rejection, right? It's the idea of not selling, the idea of putting it out there and not having anybody buy it, right? Yeah. It's easy to put out stuff. I could share all of my art on every platform, everywhere. I can put my art all around the world. Yeah. People around the world have bought my stuff. Right? I can put it out today, and everybody around the world can see it. That's easy. What's not easy is getting somebody to buy, and then the idea of if that hits too hard for people, then that's what keeps them from it, right? Because they just feel like
that's so important. I feel like that's so important. My friend Matt and I, we do a little 15-minute show called the Matt and Adam Show, and we talk about leadership topics and things like that. And we actually covered rejection a couple of weeks ago, and that I feel like that is such an obstacle for a lot of folks. To be able to get over, and that sometimes it can be crippling. Sometimes it's like, hey, they just can't get around that idea of someone not liking their thing. And we all kind of like to drink our own tea. You know what I mean? We all kind of like dig our own thing, especially if you're creative. You're like, oh man, this is like cool. And then sometimes people are like, oh, this is just nothing but garbage. And other people are like, oh, what are you talking about? It's great. It's wonderful. I'm like, no, it's not. It's awful.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we talked about that, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because it is a sense of rejection. I'll give you an example. I'm in a group for a writing group, and there's a habit of people offering work for free to read for a particular award. And so I see an awful lot of folks offering their books for free to these groups, to be read for this award. And, so what I feel like has happened is in that group, and I love the group, it's a great group and all, but I feel like what's happened is that people are so conditioned to, well, if I wait long enough, then I'll get offered this book to read for free, and I won't have to pay for it. And so it's kind of created this culture of, well, I like what I like, because I had a bunch of people that signed up for our anthology to do as advanced reader copies, and like talking about rejection. Out of that group, there were like 30 people that signed up to read the book or whatever, that they downloaded it and all that. And out of that group, I might have had like 3 or 4 that left reviews. Now, all of them agreed to leave a review, but they didn't. And so I had to, learn with the process of like, okay, well, you're going to get people that want freebies, that's going to happen. And, I kind of thought about like, well, when you go to the grocery store, before the shutdown this year, they would do, free samples and stuff a lot. So people are going to want freebies, and then you're going to get people who are not going to follow through with what they say that you're going to do, and all that's like a sense of rejection to me. It's like, well, it's good enough to get for free, but you don't want to pay the $3 that I'm asking you to buy it for. That doesn't make sense to me. It's like you want it, you really want the book, but you're not willing to pay $3 for it. But if I give it to you for free, you're like, oh, I love it, and that's just something I've been wrapping my brain around. Like, well, and it goes back to that rejection. It's like, well, why is it good enough for you to read for free, but not good enough for you to pay $3, which is less than a cup of coffee? I don't understand that, but it kind of goes back to the, like, what does that audience want? And there's going to be those are not really the people that I'm like, kind of like, hey, I'm kind of not even trying to court those kind of people. I'm like, if you want just free books, that's not like what I'm trying to do, so.
Yeah. It reminds me of this story that, you have to do your break. We can come back to that.
Yeah. Let me do the station ID. Everybody, you tune in today to WRULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And Sebastian, you want to play one more tune before us for the end of the day? All right, here's Sebastian Messer, everybody. Awesome, Bass. Thank you so much. So, what were you saying, Dave? It reminded you of a story?
Yeah. So one time, years ago, a cousin of mine, he's in a band, and the band did pretty well. They're still around, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were really kind of coming up and playing around a lot. And he's based out of Austin, Texas, but he would come into town here in LA, and every time we'd come into town, we'd try to go see him. And he would always try to put us on the guest list.
Oh,
right?
Nice.
So I just got, kind of accustomed to being on the guest list, because, it's just like, it's what he would do every time. We'd get on the guest list and we'd go see him. And so this one time we go to this venue in LA, and I know that my cousin tried to get me on the guest list, or he meant to put me on the guest list, but we get at the front door or the ticket counter, and they say, oh, we don't have anything for you. Don't have your name down or whatever. And I'm just like, and I got really kind of uptight, and and I'm trying to call him on the phone, and of course he can't hear me because there's all the noise going on inside. He can't. And so I'm getting frustrated, and it was just like, I'm supposed to be on the list. And then there's the doorman standing right there, and he basically dropped the biggest, amount of wisdom on me ever, where he just said, hey man, if he's really your cousin, then you should be willing to pay the money for the ticket.
Dude.
And I was just like,
dude.
I was just like, oh wow.
Dude.
And I was still upset, but it was just like,
yeah,
right.
he truth bombed you. That dude truth bombed you at the door.
Seriously, truth bomb. It was just like,
yeah.
Damn. And he's probably dropped that wisdom on a lot of people, right? It was just, I would just happen to be the jerk of the day. And, and I was just like, I was still uptight, but then we ended up buying our tickets, and then once I got inside, my cousin gave me, got me backstage and all that anyway. So really at the end of the day, I was still, I was supporting the venue, and I'm supporting, him and his bandmates or whatever, and I was just like, God, that's great, I mean, it's like, at the time it felt like sour grapes, but after the fact, it's become a story that I've told numerous times because
I love that story.
Yeah,
dude,
and so
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, it's just one of those things that I've lived by. Like, if you really wanted to be part of something, don't, because I still get people that ask me for free stuff all the time too.
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Or they want to wait for the discount, right? You know, like they want to wait for the discount. They want a discount code. They want all this stuff. But it's just like, look, if you really,
you'd be willing to pay full price at, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
man. I sorry about that. The mic. I just moved the mic. Man. Oh gosh, that's so crazy because I don't know. Bass. When was that? What was that day? It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were at the store and I was talking about we were talking about the YouTube and all that, and you were telling me about the YouTubers that they have like a whole bunch of people that watch them and all. Oh, yeah. And okay, so I was talking to my son Sebastian. I was like, I'm trying to figure out like more stuff of what the audience wants. And he was like, what you need to do is just do what you want to do, and then they're going to be people that gravitate to you. And I was like, I know that. I've known that. But then to hear it from my son tell me, it was like, just like the dude truth bombed you. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, you're right. And it was so crazy because I was like, okay. And it was so liberating at the same time. Because I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do the thing. And I've also kind of figured out, and I know I've known this. It's like conventional wisdom. It's not like I'm, creating anything new here. But I also know that, like, your people will find you and you'll find your people. Like you're going to find your tribe. Your tribe's going to find you. And, those. So going back to the rejection thing, which I'm so glad that you brought that up and talked about that. That has been something that I have been working with and dealing with because I had these expectations. I've been working on this project for like over a year, and I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be just gangbuster. Boom, 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 boom. Knock it out, And it was a successful launch for the book, but it was not like mega successful like I wanted it to be. And then also the team of authors, there were only like a couple of them that actually got behind helping share it and promote it. The majority of the authors did not, and I was very disappointed in that because I was like, "Whoa, yeah, it's something I'm doing. I'm sitting here trying to break my back trying to get it out there," and these other folks are like, "Yeah, I'll just share it like once or twice," and I did my part. I'm like, come on, people! If you did it, if you actually did this work and you are involved in a project, why don't you stand behind it and say, hey, I did this thing, or hey, so I've kind of had to wrap my brain around that level of rejection as well. And that's one of the things that I've been, working on myself, with my creativity stuff. And I've been kind of stalled out, Dave. I've been kind of stalled out because I've been like, not so much stalled, but I've been regrouping. You know what I mean? Like when you said you kind of had to take a step back and figure out your focus. That's where I'm at right now. I'm kind of like, okay, well, I have all these different projects I want to do, but I'm regrouping. I'm refocusing on, okay, well, does this kind of line up with where I want to be, or, whatever. So I'm right there at that stage right now. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And, it won't be the last time you're there. Right. I mean, it won't be the last time I sit in that space because, over time, things change. We change. Our ideals change. Our focus changes. Right. And, our influences on what we're doing in any particular moment are different from the last year or the last month or whatever. And, and sometimes it's just like we have to kind of recalibrate. Mm-hmm. Right. And, so there's also this aspect of being very, giving yourself kindness, right? Treating yourself with more kindness because I think that, it's like, you're not meant to figure everything out. Just because you feel a little bit smarter than you did the day before doesn't mean you're always going to be smart in every single circumstance, right? So, treat yourself with a little bit more kindness because, every day is a new lesson sometimes, so.
That's wonderful, Dave. I think that's something that gets often overlooked because we're going to be harder on ourselves than we would on anybody else, Absolutely. And I have to remind myself to try to keep that in mind. And I love how you're like, be kind to yourself, because if you'd asked me 7 years ago when I first kind of started on this little creative journey of sharing my art with the world and not just keeping it to myself, if you had said, hey, you're going to be on a radio show and you're going to, be a published journalist and you're going to do these other things, I would have been like, what? Huh? I would have been like, what are you talking about? So I think that's really cool. And it makes me feel good, talking with you that, another artist that you feel these same things, and that you've been going through the same things, and you've been through this stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing all that with me today, and with our audience. So
my pleasure.
Yeah. So Dave, before we go, where is the best place people can check your stuff out?
Simply my name, DaveConrey.com. Conrey is the last name, and find me there. And you can always find me on different social media apps, or I'm basically at Dave Conrey pretty much everywhere except for TikTok, where I couldn't get the name. And Dave Makes Things on that one, but for the most part, DaveConrey.com is where you can find everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Dave, for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It was a good conversation.
Yeah. And everybody, if you just now tuning in, the podcast will be available later on, so you can listen to both hours with me and Dave talking, and that's going to be on theadammessershow.com. So stay tuned. Up next, Savannah at Night Group. Thanks.
You are listening to WRUU LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah.